care experience for our members, and it's something that we work on all the time. I mentioned that we're looking to grow another 150,000 members next year. That is good. I just wanted to briefly talk about some of the investments. As a nonprofit community benefit corporation, we don't create profits to go to shareholders. All of our profit in Kaiser Permanente goes back into our communities in the form of new buildings, new technology, better care for our members. This past year, we opened our phase 2 to our Los Angeles Medical Center in Hollywood. A few months ago, we opened a 100-bed addition with the new neurosurgical and cardiac intensive care units. In February, we'll open a 140-bed additional tower to our South Bay Medical Center, which is in the Harbor City area. I mentioned earlier our second hospital is in construction in San Diego and will open in 2016. This year in 2014, we've opened 6 new medical office facilities in Southern California. One that's close to home and I really love is our new MOB in Pasadena on Foothill and Sierra Madre, where we've really been well accepted and greatly appreciated and seen a lot of growth. And we've been expanding our services there very rapidly, including urgent care center and a complete array of medical services. Another area that Kaiser Permanente has made huge investments, and I think we're industry leading, is our investment in information technology, our medical record system. We're very proud of our Epic system. We've invested $5 billion in it, and it provides to a provider at the point of care almost instantaneously clinical information that will help them with your diagnosis as you present, which can pull up all of your pertinent clinical information, your baseline EEG, your baseline EKG, your pulmonary function test that was done 6 months ago. It's making the paper chart world of healthcare a past that we don't want to go back to, and I think it gives us an ability to greatly improve the care that we're providing to the patient who is standing right in front of us that day. So I'm going to stop there. I tried to give you a quick high-level view. Did not want to get too wonky on healthcare. I did not talk about Ebola. It's the first day. It's the first day in the last 3 months I haven't just been totally Ebola-ized, but we are incredibly well prepared. We have designated 2 of our largest medical centers to be Ebola receiving centers here in California, in Southern California, and we're waiting to see the CDC. The CDC is supposed to designate 20 major medical centers across the country to be Ebola receiving centers, and we are possibly going to be one of them. We are training every day our staff, training on the new protocols, the new personal protective equipment that is in use, that's highly safe for taking care of these very sick patients. And thank God we've not seen an Ebola patient here in California yet. Thank God. So I'll stop there, and I look forward to our dialogue. Thank you.
So let me begin with a question. Depending on how much attention you pay to headline news about the housing market, you may feel very confused about what is going on. So how many do feel that we're doing really well in terms of the housing market? Okay, much less than I was expecting. Well, so as Kim pointed out, we have had significant price growth over the last few years, but in terms of our sales activity, we are down a lot. And so what I'm going to talk about is why we are down a lot and what is going on with the housing market, more from a structural change than related to localized markets. So where are we today? The housing fundamentals are, there was a word missing. They're positive. So housing fundamentals in general are really positive. We still have relatively low mortgage rates. When compared to last year, we were at 3.25, 3.5. Then we went to about 4.5, and then we're now in low 4% APR. So that's a really still relatively good mortgage rate, especially when we compare to some historical trends. And lending standards are loosening up a bit too. That's been another very often headlines that we read about is how strict the lending standards have become. But in the last year or so, we can certainly see some improvement in terms of loosening of lending standards. Affordability is still good. That is arguable, and I will explain throughout my presentation why I say that. Price gains are slowing. So after we started seeing price gains at the beginning of 2012, and sort of more so in 2013, we had about 23 months of double-digit house price increases on a year-over-year basis. So that, while that was good for a lot of people that were underwater, and a lot of people benefited from this, it discouraged a lot of traditional buyers out of the market. Foreclosure and delinquency rates are low, and we are back at the rates where we were in terms of foreclosure rates and delinquencies. And as a share of the market, they are today about 10% of the market. If I was talking to you in January of 2009, I would say that 70% of the market were distressed sales, with 60% being REOs and then 10% being short sales. So we've certainly cleared out a lot of that distressed inventory, but unfortunately what we are not seeing is the traditional inventory come back online. Investors are leaving and creating more opportunity for buyers that need financing. I have some fascinating slides about that. Investor activity has dominated the market since 2012 and has been sort of the instrument that came in and scooped up all the distressed inventory and propped up the market. Now the question is was this a real recovery in terms of housing price gains and clearing the inventory, or what is going to happen with this inventory that investors cleared out? Overall homeownership rate has stabilized. We have seen a decline in homeownership rate, particularly in California relative to the nation. We had a much faster decline, and that decline has been particularly among the millennials. So I'll talk a lot about what's going on with millennials. International demand for housing in California is still strong. One component of the recovery we did not necessarily account for or expect is the level of international activity that we've seen, particularly from Asian buyers and Chinese buyers. There are some communities in Southern California where is entirely Chinese buyers in the market, and they come in with a lot of cash, and they have priced out a lot of traditional buyers out of the market. And then lastly, construction is up. As Kim talked about, we have come to the historical lows in terms of construction activity, and we are not meeting demand. Housing demand in terms of just regular household growth that we are seeing on an annual basis. We are only about half of where we need to be just to meet that growing household growth. Economic fundamentals, I will only say, Kim covered everything. So economic growth is accelerating. So that's the punchline is economic growth is accelerating, and we have had a really strong job market. 2014 is the best year on record since 1995 in terms of job growth. So what is going on? Let's talk about demographics. So demographics is one of those components of the housing market that has really sort of changed what's going on in the market. Affordability. Now, affordability is in fact worsening, and particularly in some areas with high demand where we have high demand. So I won't say that the affordability is worse in Inland Empire or Central Valley. No, where we have a worse affordability issues are in this area. It's in the Bay Area. In the Bay Area, we forecast that by next year, only 1 out of 10 households will be able to afford a median price home. So let's move on now. What else is going on? So homeownership rate for 18 to 34-year-olds, so these are the millennials, it's still falling. I mentioned that the homeownership rate has stabilized. It has not stabilized for that generation. Household formation is very, very low. For the U.S., we estimate the estimates show about 500,000 households that were created over the last, each year over the last few years, where generally we were we would have expected historically about 1.3 million households being added nationally. So for California, we estimate that between 2008 and 2012, as a result of the recession, we had not created over 1 million households that we would have otherwise created had we continued to grow at the rate that we were growing. So now the majority of these new households are renters. So the question that we struggle with in housing as housing economists is this renter nation? Are we a renter nation, or are we going to become a renter nation, or what is the attitudes that millennials have towards home ownership? Fortunately, CAR, California Association of Realtors, and many other organizations do a lot of surveys asking millennials what their desires and expectations are. The fact is that they do want to be homeowners. What is different about them today than previous generations is that they're delaying adulthood. So they don't want to become adults. They want to live home with parents, they don't want to get married, and they don't want to have kids. The probability of being married for that generation versus generations before is about 8 percentage points. So they're getting married later, if not at all. Another issue we have with them is they have student loans, and there's a lot of discussion about how much student loans are affecting the demand for millennials. And they also have dim job prospects. Kim mentioned the participation rate being lower among millennials, in particular in California, say, than some other places in the nation. Then we have baby boomers. Baby boomers are also delaying retirement, and they're staying put longer. So they have, if they were able, they probably refinanced their mortgage back at 3% a couple of years ago, or maybe even bought at the 3%. So one issue that we have is that the idea of mortgage lock-in effect. So if they locked in a very low mortgage rate at prices that were still 20%, 30% lower than they are today, they are less likely to be moving today. So in general, we have lower mobility rates. But this trend is not necessarily tied to the recession or what's going on with the housing market. Decline in mobility rates actually started early in 2000s when among all age groups, and particularly among the millennials, we see lower mobility rates. And then lastly, we have inventory issues. That is one of the main drivers of rapid house price appreciation in the States. We have inventory levels that are historically low. There are some increases that we see, particularly among higher price ranges, but they are still well below what we would consider normal inventory of homes available for sale. So the one group of buyers that has struggled the most are the first-time buyers. They face the most obstacles. For one, they have lots of competition for existing housing stock. I mentioned investors, I mentioned international buyers, and both of these guys come in with a lot of cash. So they have a lot of affordability constraints. They don't have enough, they lack a lot of times down payment. They lack information about home buying process, and they fear financing. Over and over again in surveys show that young buyers don't think that they can qualify for a mortgage, so they don't even try to go out there and pursue home ownership because they simply don't think they can qualify. I mentioned dim job prospects for many. Lack of income growth is something that Kim as well mentioned, and many of them still have jobs. They're in some sense underemployed, so they're not employed to their full potential. So let me now support all the statements that I told you with some graphs. So this graph shows the share of young adults that lives with parents, and the upper one, the solid line is ages 18 to 24, and the dotted line is ages to 25 to 34. And this is at the national level, and you can see between 2000 to 2012 the increase in share of young adults living with their parents. Again, this is at the national level. For California, we are talking about 50% of millennials living with their parents. Student loan debt. Oops. That generated some discussion. How many of you have kids living home with you? Okay, I have my parents living with me. My parents just, I don't know. I'm still single, so that tells you something. My parents, I'm from Croatia. My parents just moved in from Croatia a year ago, and they moved in with me. So, lucky me. I love my parents. So student loan debt. That's been one point of a lot of discussion is how much student debt is preventing young adults to enter home ownership. This is from one of our surveys, and it asked if they have any outstanding student loan debt. And 75% said that they didn't have any student loan debt, and if they did, they had less than $10,000. So while we talk about at the national level in aggregate numbers about 23 to say $20,000 to $30,000 in student debt, these are averages, and they are generally skewed by kids that have that are getting professional degrees. So later down the road, their income potential is going to be much higher, and their return on investment, on education investment, is going to be higher. So another question that I don't have a slide on here, but it asked young adults if they think that having student loans is preventing them from buying a home, and 60% said they no. So we don't think that not having enough, that having student loans is preventing people from entering home ownership. Now, what we do have, as I mentioned, lack of inventory, and lack of inventory is particularly severe in the lowest price segment and second tier. So, what is going on over there? We have had this slide shows you by different age groups. So, under 40, 40 to 61, and 62 and over, a return of real housing assets relative to 2007. And the blue line, the one on the bottom, you can see that those under 40 years old only recovered about 1/3 of wealth lost during the recession in terms of housing assets. And then home price schemes that we have had have generally helped older families rebuild their equity. So the line in green, which is 62 and over, and 40 to 61, the red line, they are generally the ones that have been able to recover their housing assets. And then, so as a result, Gen Xers, so that's 40 and under, have higher negative equity. When you look at the negative equity across the state, we have still about 11% people or households having negative equity. That translates in about 1 million households. And when you look at the distribution by age, this lower age group, 40 and younger, Gen Xers and Gen Yers, are the ones with the highest share of negative equity. So what that does is it does not allow baby boomers to have move-up buyers for their homes, but there is also no inventory for startup homes and affordable homes for first-time buyers. So this is where for one, we have a lack of inventory, and for one, it's preventing us from having moving up of buyers up and down the inventory. So let me now show you some other interesting slides about the issues that I talked about. So this is interesting about institutional buyers. So these are 4 metropolitan areas in California. The one on the left top is Riverside, on the right is Oakland, on the left down is Los Angeles, and on the right down is Sacramento. And this is share of purchases of institutional investors. And you can see the general across all metropolitan areas in California, we had a significant influx of institutional investors into the market in 2012 and 2013, and then by beginning of this year, most of these institutional investors left the state. And consequently, as they left state, the level of their activity was not complemented by or supplemented by activity from traditional buyers. Okay, this is where my charts get messy. So this is sales of existing detached homes in California. All the way to the right is so where we dips down, the last set of bars where it dips down, that's beginning of 2014. And you can see 2014 in generally being a much slower year in terms of the activity than the year prior. So for this year, we are, not that this number means much to you, but we are at about 395,000 homes annually at annualized rate being sold. Last year, we had, at this time, when we compare year to year, we would have, the annualized number is 434. So we are about 40,000 units of fewer activity than we were a year before. So for the year as a whole, we anticipate 10% lower activity than we had the year before. Now, this is interesting. So the U.S. Home prices dipped down to zero. This is a mistake with the program here, but it's funny nevertheless. So the blue line is California, and these are our home prices in California, sort of historically. If you look, the number goes back to 1970, and you can see the large jump in prices during the housing boom, and then where we are in terms of the recovery today. So okay, so this is where it gets screwy. So let's see. I have my slides here too, so I'll just use them for a second to talk to you about what's going on. So when we compare where we are in terms of prices today versus where we were at the bottom, we are about 96% off the bottom. So we bottomed out in February of 2009 at about $245,000 median price home, and we are today at about 480 median price home. It's really 460. Our last release was yesterday, which showed 460 median price home. 480 was for August, but not to say that our prices went down. What happened was we had more higher price homes selling in August than we had in September. So we're somewhere in between in terms of median price homes. For the LA region, we are a little bit. We have a little bit less of a recovery, depending on where you're looking at. One area that has recovered the prices entirely and surpassed them by almost double digit is the Bay Area. They have had a very strong activity in terms of home sales and prices, price growth, and they have surpassed their prices well above even last year. So let's see what we can see here. Okay, so this slide would have showed you how we changed from being a distressed market in 2009 to being a traditional market today. So as I said, 70% of the sales in 2009 were distressed sales, REO, and short sales, and today 90% of sales are traditional sales. So the people that are selling homes don't have any issues with equity or are not in foreclosure. Oh, okay, here it is. So you can see here the blue line is the equity sales. So you can see this transition from distressed market into the equity market. So let's see. Okay, so now the question is, we do still have some REO inventory or distressed inventory. Where is that distressed inventory located? Of the entire state's inventory, a lot of that inventory, actually 20%, is in the Los Angeles area. Keep in mind, though, Los Angeles area is one of the biggest is one of the biggest counties in terms of population, if not the biggest. I think it's the biggest. So you know, we're talking about relative terms here. So naturally, may have a high share of distressed sales, but it's still followed by areas that have suffered as a result for a long time, being Sacramento, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Fresno. The areas, I'm not sure what this is. This kind of all got lost. So let's see. So a slide I think that should have been here would have showed you how much, what areas have seen the best improvement in terms of distressed sales, and all of those areas are actually in the Bay Area. So now let's move on to prices. So this is the long-term trend for prices. The price numbers here, the price trend starts in January of 2005. So category 1 would be January of 2005 and goes all the way to today. So you can see this $480,000 median price home in 2000 and in August of this year. So what another interesting thing you can see is the set of bars that go up really fast in the last 3 years. So 2012 goes up pretty fast and slows down. 2013 goes up even faster, and then 2014 continues to go faster. So these are the 23 months that I mentioned of a double-digit year-over-year increases in home prices. Finally, sort of at the beginning of this year, maybe as of this summer, we started seeing slowdown in price. So prices have started to plateau, and now we only have about single-digit increase in prices. Keep in mind, though, these are median prices, so they're affected by mix of sales that are being sold in the market. And as the market changed from being distressed market to being traditional market, we also had more expensive homes being sold. So not to say that this double-digit price increase was actual appreciation on any particular home, but just was the mix of sales of homes being sold. Now I mentioned the issue with inventory. It's one of the main biggest constraints we have in the market today and have had for some period amount of time. Today in August we were at 3 months supply of inventory. So that means at the current rate of sales we would clear out all the supplies of homes available for sale in 3 months. So this was in August of 2013. In August of 2014 we only moved to 4 months. This is a ratio. This index is a ratio of raw inventory versus sales. So if you have slower sale, then the index goes up. So a lot of this increase that we're talking about is actually because we have slower sales. Nevertheless, a chart that would be here would show you that that inventory is picking up in the higher price ranges. So we are seeing more inventory in the higher price ranges, but not necessarily in lower and medium price ranges where our traditional buyers or first-time buyers and millennials would be coming in. So why is the inventory so low? I mentioned some of the things, but I'm just going to repeat all of them again. So on the demand side, we have housing affordability that was at historic highs. In 2012, in the first quarter, we reached our housing affordability historically, and we were at about 56% affordability rate. That means that 56% of households in California can afford a median price home. Today, we are at 30% median 30% affordability rate. That means that only 30% of households can qualify for median price home. So this drop of 25 percentage points in housing affordability caused about 250,000 households not to be able to qualify for median price home anymore. We had very low interest rates that hurt other investment alternatives. So as a result, we had a lot of money coming into the market. I showed you the share of investors coming in, international buyers as well. On the supply side, we had very, very little new construction for the last 5 years. Fortunately, this graph is working here, so I can show you exactly what Kim and I are trying to point out. So this, let me just see when this category 1 starts. This is in 1988, so we are looking from 1988 to today. The red bar, it's not where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be at the mark between 220 and 250,000. So it's when you look at between 160 and 230 on the x-axis, you can that's where this line would fall. But you can see that the level of activity we have going on today is not even half of what we need to be producing in order to meet the household growth. So that's one of the biggest constraints to on the supply side of inventory. As I said, underwater homeowners are stuck. We still have about 1 million of underwater homeowners, and a lot of them again being in those lower price ranges. Mortgage lock-in effect, and mentioned that as well. Those are the buyers that, those the people that refinance at really low rates. They don't necessarily have an incentive right now to move. There is no inventory to move up. That's that middle price range category I was talking about. Foreclosure pipeline drying up. I talked about that as well. That foreclosure inventory is almost completely gone. I was on a panel yesterday with somebody from one of the financial institutions that would argue that there is still a lot of inventory out there. It's just sort of in the shadows, if I can put it that way, meaning that a lot of people are still going through modification processes. A lot of the underwater or non-performing loans may have been purchased by portfolio investors, and then these guys have put these homeowners in some sort of a modification program that is not necessarily going to work out at the end. So they are, in fact, delaying their inevitable foreclosure. Now, for good or bad, if that does happen, the process is going to be slow and it's going to take a long period of time. But so I don't want to say that we don't have any foreclosure inventory left at all. It's just it's still not visible to us. It's not visible to our realtors. It's something that exchange hands generally between banks and large institutional buyers. And then these investors that have bought, they are renting instead of flipping. Generally, in the past, we've seen much more flipping activity going on than we see today, but today's investors are generally renting their properties. So this is the next few slides are just to support what I was saying. But I talked about underwater homeowners. This is the negative equity. So we went from being about 35% negative equity in California to about 11% today. And so the next few slides I'm not going to go through because we're running out of time, but they're localized housing data, so sales, prices, inventory, and inventory. And generally what you're going to see for all local areas is we've had decrease in sales, we have continued increase in prices, and very, very low inventory. So with that, I'm going to close, and thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you. I'm Mike Ross with the Pasadena Center Operating Company. I'll be brief. There's very few of us left, but I want to go through some things real quick. A little bit about the Pasadena Center Operating Company. We're a nonprofit organization. We have 15 members that are appointed by the mayor and city council. We manage the Pasadena Convention Center, the Civic Auditorium, the Ice Skating Center, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Our mission, and this is real simple, we promote Pasadena as a meeting and travel destination in an effort to maximize economic impact. And that's really what our organization is about. We're a marketing organization. We want to bring visitors here who spend their money. We're self-funded through our own operations, through a share of the occupancy tax, and also the Tourism Business Improvement District. The Pasadena market summary in terms of hotels, I know this is one thing Paul wanted me to touch on. In this past year, Pasadena hotels had an increase of 22.4% in occupancy. We're running at about an 85% occupancy, which is extremely high. We had an increase of 18.6% for average daily rate, up to almost $158. And then we had an increase of 45% for our RevPAR, which is revenue per available room, which is topping out at just over $133. And those rates are rising. This is a slide that I think you'll find interesting. You can take a look at 2010. Occupancy was at 68%. And again, now we're at almost 85%. The average daily rate has increased from $133 to $158. And again, right across the way, RevPAR has gone up dramatically from 91% or $91 to $133. Let's go back here. One of the things, new hotels, again, Paul asked me to touch on this. There's a number of new hotels that are in the planning stages. We have 2 hotels, the Dusit D2 Constance Pasadena Hotel with 162 rooms at full build-out. It's currently open with some limited inventory. Also, the Residence Inn is opening, we believe, in September of 2015 with 144 rooms. And then we've got a number of hotels planned. I'll just talk about the 2 that I'm most familiar with, and that's the Hyatt Place Hotel at Paseo, Colorado, approximately 180 rooms, and that will go into the old Macy's site, hopefully within 2017, 2018. And then also a Kimpton Hotel is looking at 150 to 180 rooms at the site of the old YWCA. Some of our sales objectives, I won't go through, but to just let you know that our ideas, our thoughts are moving forward. We need to continue to book conventions, trade shows, and meetings that generate a minimum of 40,000 room nights that we generate each year. We want to increase our qualified leads, and then we want to generate 3 new citywide bookings from National and Midwest Association, and also 2 new citywide bookings from our California State Association market. We attend a number of trade shows that we go about recruiting business to Pasadena. We obviously advertise quite a bit in all of the meeting trades. New convention accounts, this is something I did want to touch on. We have 5 new great pieces of business that have been booked. The American Photopathological Society, 3,300 rooms. Great Minds in STEM, which I know the mayor attended a great conference this past month in New Orleans. It's in October of 2015, 3,800 rooms. The American Choral Directors Association, 2,300 rooms. Salvation Army, The Gathering, is back in June of 2017, and that's 3,500 rooms. And then we just got notified in working with JPL and Caltech that we booked a scientific convention called COSPAR for July of 2018, 6,500 rooms, which is the largest convention ever booked in Pasadena. We have several market